very excited to sit down and work together on the Gaza peace plan. We have a very, very tough task ahead of us, which is to disarm Hamas but rebuild Gaza to make life better for the people in Gaza, but also to ensure that Hamas is no longer a threat to our friends in Israel. That's not easy, but it's something that we're committed to in the Trump administration. And I think that we've, even in the past 24 hours, had a lot of good conversations with our friends in the Israeli government, but also, frankly, with our friends in the Arab world who are stepping up and volunteering to play a very positive role in this. I feel very optimistic about where we are. So thank you for the partnership.
That was Vice President JD Vance meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu earlier this morning as the administration looks to bolster that peace deal, despite Israel and Hamas accusing each other of violating the ceasefire. The remains of 2 more Israeli men were returned home overnight. The bodies of at least 13 hostages still in Gaza. Hamas is saying it has difficulty finding all of the remains that need to be returned. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner met with the families of recently released hostages yesterday. I want to bring in Heritage Foundation Vice President of National Security and former Foreign Policy and Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump, Victoria Coates. Victoria, with the Vice President there this morning in Israel, trying to kind of get to the next phase. You also have Jared Kushner. You've got Steve Witkoff, very effective negotiators. Where does this go?
Carol, good to be with you. Yes, I think the Trump administration is signaling very clearly in a physical way that they're committed to this process. So the vice presidents there, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and Secretary Rubio will be going later on in the week. The president, of course, went 10 days ago. So they're very, very committed to getting this process going. But bear in mind, as you just reported, we're still in phase 1 of this deal. We're still getting the bodies of the hostages back. And, of course, getting the live hostages out was a really cathartic moment, I think, for everyone in Israel, bringing some closure to that. But we need to get all these bodies out. Hamas knows that. They're kind of dribbling them out. They need to have more pressure put on them to do the hard work to find those bodies. The burden is on them. It's their fault that the bodies are there. They need to get them out.
We actually heard from Jared Kushner this morning. This was earlier this morning at a press conference. Let's watch.
First of all, no reconstruction aid, no reconstruction funds will be going into areas that Hamas still controls. And as far as the demilitarization goes, once the ISF is up, there needs to be a security force that they can feel safe from, that in order for it to be the transition to be complete. So that needs to happen. There are considerations happening now in the area that the IDF controls, as long as that can be secured to start the construction as a new Gaza, in order to give the Palestinians living in Gaza a place to go, a place to get jobs, a place to live. So that's one of the many things being considered. Right now, again, there's been several work streams that have occurred over the last years. Those are all being synthesized and updated here at the center, and then they'll go before President Trump and the Board of Peace to get recommendations on what to build, how to phase it. But that's definitely something now that's being very strongly considered.
What did you make of that, Victoria, that comment from him?
No, I think we're now looking at what phase 2 can look like for the Palestinians living in Gaza. And it's interesting, Cheryl, if you think about it, if reconstruction starts in the part of Gaza that becomes new Gaza that's under Israeli control, and Hamas can't produce that in the parts of Gaza that they control, that makes an interesting point for the interesting choice rather for the Palestinians living in Gaza. Do they want that new chance at a life, at a job, at building something for their kids, or do they want to stick with Hamas? So that choice is being produced for them. Jared knows as well as anyone the kind of projects that need to be implemented here. It's electricity, it's desalination, it's waste management. We worked on that file for a year, putting together what those projects could look like. So that is just practical work that can happen if the Palestinians in Gaza make the right choice.
No, and certainly there is so much work to be done in Gaza, to your point, to rebuild. President Trump, by the way, announcing his planned meeting with Vladimir Putin in Hungary has been canceled. He said the meeting would be a waste of time. Russia is holding on to territorial ambitions, though. This makes a peace deal look highly unlikely. A senior White House official said, quote, "There's no plans for President Trump to meet with President Putin in the immediate future, Victoria." I mean, how does this impact the president's move to try to end this war?
Well, the president marked 9 months in office this week, so maybe we have to wait for 10 months to get to the resolution of the Ukraine war. But he's not going to waste his time. And if Putin is willing to talk about a reasonable deal to end this killing, to end this war, of course he would go to Budapest and meet with them. But he's not going to go just for a photo op. He's got plenty to do here at home for the American people. So, it's disappointing that Putin is not in a more reasonable state. I think you might see the president take some stronger economic moves against Russia in coming weeks to build that pressure on them as we get into close to the end of the year. I think we could see the president working with India, for example, to reduce imports of Russian gas and oil, and putting a lot of pressure on the Europeans to stop importing Russian gas. The European Union, if you'll believe this, announced with great fanfare 2 days ago that they're going to get themselves off Russian gas by 2028. I mean, I'm sorry, we're almost 4 years into this war, and Europe is still importing significant quantities of Russian energy. That's on Europe to end that dependency. Even
the Chinese have signaled that they would maybe scale back because they're in the middle of this trade negotiation fight, if you will, with President Trump. That's unbelievable. Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I've got Tiana Lodesher on the side. Just got a question for you, Victoria.
Much was made about last week's meeting between Trump and Zelensky, with Trump denying the idea that he was pushing Zelensky to give up all the Donbass. However, what isn't denied is that Putin said no to a proposal of freezing the territories along the current front lines. Where does that put any hopes for negotiations if that is considered a non-starter?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a real problem. I mean, that's a perfectly reasonable sort of starting point to get to a ceasefire to end this war. And if Putin's just not there yet, we're going to need the kind of economic moves I just outlined to get that pressure on him. The Russian economy is weak. They're running out of foreign currency reserves. So they're not in a sort of 10-foot-tall position of strength here. There's a lot the president can do to bring him to the table, but he's clearly not there yet.
Interesting. Well, I brought up China. President Trump is going to sit down with Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea in just 2 weeks. Obviously, the tariff tensions have escalated. We're talking 157% here. And, President Trump commented from the White House yesterday about the situation with China. Watch.
I'm going to see President Xi in 2 weeks. I'm going over to South Korea. We're going to meet in South Korea. We're going to talk about a lot of things. They want to discuss the fact that they're paying 157% tariff. It's a little higher than they thought. And we're doing very well. I think we're going to do well in that negotiation. We've done well, as you know, with Japan, with South Korea, with Europe.
Victoria?
Yes, I think it's a really good thing, Cheryl, that the two leaders of China and the United States are meeting. They can talk, lower tensions, hopefully. I mean, the specter of a military conflict with China is what everybody wants to avoid. It would be horrible for everyone. So the meeting itself is just a good thing. Now, what comes out of it in terms of the potential trade deal, agreement on rare earths, that's really, really important to our manufacturing sector. That China has twice this year brandished the threat of cutting us off from those rare earths. We're working really hard to develop our domestic supplies, but we're years away from doing that, and we import 90% of our rare earths from China. So that's a very serious dependency that we have to get resolved. Hopefully all those topics will be on the table in South Korea.
Real quick, though, on that, does the agreement we just signed with Australia help that and mitigate that dependence on China?
It helps enormously in terms of the supply of the rare earths. The problem is China controls all the processing of the rare earths that get them to the condition where they can be used. So that's where we really need to step up, build up our manufacturing base. The president's working hard to do that. But as I said, that's going to take a little time.
Yeah, no, because China controls 90% of the process, and they've only got 37% of the world's reserves of rare earths. There are other places to get rare earths, but they've cornered the market. And that's our problem. Victoria Coates, it's always great to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.